Today, we're going to talk about something many people have heard of, but very few have taken the time to unpack. It's two simple words: acting white.
Welcome to the Multicultural Mindset Broadcast. Your host is Dr. LaVerne Collins, a licensed professional counselor, award-winning trainer, and keynote speaker. Dr. Collins is the author of Overlooked: Counselor Insights for the Unspoken Issues in Black American Life. Dr. Collins has also been a featured monthly columnist in the American Counseling Association's Counseling Today magazine with her Honoring Diversity column. Now, here's Dr. Collins.
Welcome to the Multicultural Mindset Podcast. This is the place where we focus on the experiences of racialized populations to understand how identity-based factors really help shape the way we live and work and heal and relate to one another. Acting white. The acting white accusation is our topic for today. For many Black Americans, those words carry pain, they carry weight. They show up in school hallways, in family conversations, and in friendships. Sometimes they're said jokingly, sometimes they are said as an accusation, and sometimes they land on a young person's identity in ways that shape how they see themselves for years. What does it mean when things like academic success or language or diction or articulation or particular interest become a reason to question someone's racial authenticity? And where did this idea come from? More importantly, what happens inside the mind of a young Black person when they hear it? Well, today's conversation is not an interrogation, nor is it a debate. It's a conversation between two clinicians thinking honestly about something that has quietly influenced belonging, identity, and cultural expectations in our communities. Joining me today is my friend and colleague, Mary Hill-Hart. She is a licensed professional counselor and owner of Hart Recovery Center in Georgia. Mary has spent some time thinking deeply about what researchers sometimes call this acting white accusation as it relates to Black identity and awareness and sense of self. So, Mary, I am so glad that you are here today. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Collins, for having me, and I appreciate that. And this is a great topic to get into.
Oh, it is. And it's one that we don't talk about. You know, my book, Overlooked, talks about many things that are not discussed in Black communities or brown communities, but this is something different. This is not one of those things. And I'm so glad that we started having this conversation. So I'm glad that we can share. We can allow the world to listen in on what you and I have been talking about in this regard. So let me just start by making sure that we have an understanding of the phrase. What is meant by acting white accusation? And how have you seen this used in real life?
Thank you for asking. That's a great question. Basically, it is accusations towards a Black person based on their achievements or their behaviors or their cross-racial relationships or friendships or interests. Just, it's kind of like a gatekeeping or an identity policing phrase. And that's just some type of a way of trying to control, right, their preferences of their behaviors or their achievements.
Wow. Gatekeeping and attempts to control how another person acts or behaves or speaks or whatever it might be. In order to, you use the term gatekeeping, in order to be a gatekeeper, what is a gatekeeper in this sense? Are people trying to determine who's in the inside black track, or who what is what is that really?
It pretty much is the same. It is the thing. It's how we regulate who we belong to in our identity and the way we're supposed to act, or who we're supposed to connect with and have friendships with, or what our interests are. And if
Based on, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, you're gonna say it. It's based on what they see, what is perceived, or what is assumed that Black culture is the authenticity of Black culture. Am I actually fitting into that identity, what is expected?
Wow. So the gatekeepers say, you don't act like me, so you're not black, and we can't let you into our clique, our circle. We can't let you identify with us because there are certain ways that you're different than we are, and we don't know what to do with that. Is
Right.
that kind
That's
of
that
it?
absolute identity policing. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Policing. Those are powerful words that sound really dangerous to the mind, the soul, the psyche, the identity, if a person is not grounded. That should be a concern to all of us. Mary, let me ask you this: how did you become interested in thinking about this? When you're thinking about the impact of acting white accusations, was that something that you witnessed, or something that you experienced personally, or what?
I've experienced that since middle school. I've always experienced that, but I didn't really understand it, and it didn't come to the forefront until I was part of the multicultural masterclass that you sponsored, of course, with new seasons. And that's when I got a chance to really dig deep on why I'm doing what I'm doing, what my passions are, to bring awareness and to understand that multicultural mindset, right? And because of my peers, my social network, my achievements academically, my successes, the things, the activities that I were involved in, I've always heard, oh, Mary, you're acting white. Oh, Mary, you think you're better than us. Oh, Mary, you're this and that. And I didn't understand that in middle school,
Right.
high school, and even, grown going into college. I attended a PWI, a predominantly white institution. And again, I heard that within my community that, oh, you're going to that white school, or oh, you think you're better than us, and oh, you got all this education. And
Mm.
I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I didn't realize that this was a real issue, but it just made me believe, oh, well, maybe I am acting white.
Whatever that means, right? My goodness.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you felt the sting of that acting white
Absolutely.
accusation. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let me switch over to, I'm going to say, the mindset of the persons who make those kinds of accusations. What do you think is happening socially or psychologically whenever achievement, or academic success, or any of the other kinds of things that might bring on that accusation? What do you think is happening in the mind of the accuser, when that accusation is made? Where is that coming
Betrayal. But it's betrayal. They've been betrayed, right? Because you're different. So if I'm gonna accuse you of acting white, I'm feeling though as if you're not part of us, that you're going against what we expect culturally.
So there's a bit of, you're suggesting, disappointment in that
Absolutely.
they're coming from a place where I'm Black, and my Black culture dictates certain kinds of behaviors and choices, and your choices don't align. So you then have betrayed me, and I'm going to kick you out of the circle. Is that what's happening?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Be-
Mm.
because we feel that, again, we're treating what I found throughout my research and being part of the masterclass and working with you and other clinicians, it's that conflating that race and that culture together and treating race and culture as if they were one, and they're
Same
not.
board. Keep going. Yes. Yeah.
And that's what we do. We it's that social construct. Again, it's based on our physical appearance. That's what our race is, right? I'm dark skinned. You can tell that I'm black part of the black community, right? But what is my culture tells me that's my behaviors,
Mhm.
right? Who I'm
Yeah.
connecting with, my belief systems, and my social interactions.
Norms
Well,
and choices and foods and celebrations and
absolutely,
language, all of those things are how we define a culture. And
absolutely,
you're so on point. I'm a firm believer that we often conflate or merge race and culture,
yeah.
where in reality, there are Black cultures within Black culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's common and it's very harmful. It's a mistake because we can get it confused, right?
Mm,
And it could cause a lot of issues growing for a person, young person, especially growing up, because they're gonna be confused on really what is their identity. Is there something wrong with me because I like Asian food, or in my case, I was a Polynesian dancer with the Samoan community. And I did that as an after school activity. That
mhm.
was not norm,
That
you
wasn't
know,
the norm for the Black community in your surroundings.
no, but that was there. It was offered. And we went on after school trips to do Polynesian dancing. And I was a Polynesian dancer with my team.
Hmm. And that, according to the other young people, made you not Black, made you acting white because you did
Absolutely.
something that you crossed cultures in terms of your social activity there.
Right.
And from my perspective, in the work I do, and just as a human being in general, I believe in crossing cultures. I believe in multicultural experiences and cross-cultural experiences as helping us just to become better informed, aware,
Absolutely.
culturally sensitive human beings,
Right.
and appreciating cultures rather than dismissing cultures.
Right. And I agree with you. And that is why I'm so grateful being raised, and introduced to different types of foods and going to plays and, celebrations.
Mhm.
I'm grateful for that.
It almost sounds like for individuals who do not have perhaps the economic privilege
Mhm.
or travel opportunities, it almost sounds as if economic privilege once again gets confused with racial privilege. So if you had a degree of racial privilege to engage cross culturally, and you come back with that was not seen in your case, and for many people, it wasn't seen as a positive thing, as a good thing. Did you have any sense that perhaps some of what you were experiencing was masked envy from your peers?
Yes. Yes, definitely. And again, being a young person, not realizing until I was older of some of the financial privileges that I had,
Mhm.
in reflection back. And I could see where my peers, they weren't as fortunate when it came to um, the financial resources to be able to go on these after school activities. And
Mhm.
I'm understanding that now, but then I didn't really understand that.
But it felt
Uh,
like your peers were punishing you.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Now, do you see this in adulthood? I'm going to come back to the roots of this and the psychological impact. But young people aren't the only ones that make those accusations.
Oh, absolutely. I see it on my caseload all the time as a therapist.
Say more.
I have Black professional women or men that are successful academically, meaning that they're doctors or they've achieved a higher level, they're in high paying positions, leadership positions, but yet their peers, their colleagues who may look like them, giving them the hardest time.
From within their own race.
Absolutely. And they expect it from the non uh like right, the white America, and but they're getting it from Black America.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's
Wow.
their biggest struggle is
Mhm.
what they expect. They expect it from everyone else, but they don't expect it within their own race and their own culture.
And it's interesting that you may have a contingency from other races who would call they would call them a DEI hire.
Oh my goodness.
And
Ooh,
then within their own community, their own
abs-
racial identity, they are accused of either selling out or acting white or something like that. When in reality, you're talking about hardworking people who have worked their butts off and practically till their heads exploded, studying
oh,
things and learning
absolutely.
things and mastering and excelling in what they do and what they've learned. They've given their whole lives to being well and to performing at the top of their class and at the top of their profession or whatever. And how how conflicting that must be
Yeah,
for people
it
in
breaks them.
practice.
It breaks their spirit. And
Hmm.
and it's just really disheartening, but I understand that because of the identity, identity stress. And that's what they're experiencing is that psychological and structural roots of the identity stress, because that is what happens. And that's what we have to do as clinicians is to address that.
Wow. The psychological impact. And you know what is, one of the things I always say is so important is we don't need as counselors to leave culture and identity in the background. We need to invite that content to the foreground. Because if someone
Absolutely.
comes in and says they're feeling stress, they come into your office, they're they're feeling overwhelmed. I wonder how often a person talks about, I mean, a clinician introduces this topic to talk about how a successful African American professional or student is viewed or treated by peers in light of their success. That is one of those things that's overlooked. One would assume that because they have been successful, that they are also respected and that their work and their contributions are appreciated, but that might not be the case. And I would imagine, you tell me if this rings true
Mm-hmm.
from what you've seen,
Mm-hmm.
those statements, those accusations sometimes come from their own siblings or their own cousins or their aunties or uncles, perhaps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And within our family. That's the hardest thing. It creates comparison. It creates, of course, increased anxiety, depressive symptoms, feeling that they're not authentically Black or Black enough.
Yeah.
Um, and it makes them question their identity culturally. It makes them question that.
Yeah. And what happens when a person is made to question their identity? Does that lead to like internalized racism or an assaulted sense of self? What do you
It really does. That internal and external pressures, it creates that because then if you tell me that I'm acting white and I start to believe that, That's self-inflicted internal racism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is not, it's not going to get me anywhere because it's going to force me to do whatever I can to try to make sure that I fit in here or that I fit in here. And while still feeling rejected, whether it's by my own family or from my peers or colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just keeps us in a state of confusion, which again, that psychological and the identity distress,
Yeah.
structural roots of our identity distress.
Yeah. Let's talk about protective factors because some people have the ability to blow that off, to laugh it
Right.
off, ignore
Right.
it. They don't absorb it. It doesn't mean anything. They don't give it legs. What's the difference? What allows a person, one person, to be able to listen to that and go, whatever you think that means, you keep that to yourself, even if they don't say that out loud. And I'm
Right.
going to go back a minute and say that when you hear that as an adult, it's most likely spoken to you from family. But even though it might be spoken about you, as we used to say, behind your back,
Right. Right. Right.
don't put it in your face. And that's how
Well,
Thanksgiving dinners get ruined because
I'll, we know who's not going to get invited to come back next year. Yeah.
that's how Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners get,
Yeah.
get off the rails and end up being a train wreck when it should have been, a celebration. But yeah, what does it take to, how does one have to see oneself? What's it say about one's identity? Or I don't know what the answer is, but what's it say about one's identity and sense of self when you can release that and not absorb it?
As a protective factor, it's that positive racial socialization, right? Our community belonging. Do I belong? Right. And you can get that through mentorship. You can get that through representation, dealing with workspaces or education. But just having a strong racial cultural identity, it's going to always predict resilience against racial stress.
Yeah,
You just have to really know who you are
yeah,
and know that because you work hard to earn the grades that you've earned and you've earned that title to be valedictorian or on the honors list or the dean's list, and the fact that you are exposed to different foods because you happen to have a friend that is uh, Filipino, so therefore being exposed to Filipino food is that's just part of who I am and that's part of my environment. So those are protective factors of knowing that it really is okay.
mm,
And it doesn't mean that you're going against who your family, that heritage, that lineage. It just means that you're just exposed to other places and people in this world. And that really is okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And acting white accusation, it's a myth. It doesn't even exist.
you
It,
can't
it
act white if you, because white is not a behavior.
and it's not a standard, and there's not a written rule that if you get good grades, you're acting white. And if you don't get good grades, I guess you're not white. And the reality is, yeah, we can create legs and we can give it legs and believe that it exists. And that's what I mentioned. It's a negative, it really can be a negative impact and it can lead to ongoing internal racism.
Yeah, yeah. Because when I think about it, acting white accusation usually comes with either the words or the assumption, you think you're better than us.
Oh, yeah.
And what that causes me to question is that maybe the does the person speaking those words think that white is better than
To
black?
be
You're
honest,
acting white and because you think you're better than us. Well, what's that say about the speaker's perception of blackness?
They're living in a vacuum.
Mm.
It doesn't even exist. And that is internal racism. They don't even realize that they are contributing to that internal racism that they're experiencing themselves.
Because they're not recognizing that to
No.
say you think you're better because you think you're white may suggest that at some level, again, they're assigning some level of superiority to what they consider whiteness, but they're not judging whiteness by um, skin color, but by culture. And as we're saying, when you conflate the two, you ascribe certain cultural nuances to skin color. So if I go to the ballet, which I always enjoyed that. If I go to
Right.
see the Nutcracker, if I go see Alvin Ailey, just the Alvin Ailey dancers, amazing, amazing, Afrocentric um, uh, dance company.
Right.
If I go to where if I if I travel, because I've always loved to travel. If I travel, does that experience make me cause someone to say I think I'm better than they are? The way I say it, and it saddens me, but the way I say it is that if my definition, if a person's definition of Blackness is that limited to one form of dance, one form of music, one way of dressing, one way of communicating,
Come on now.
then I actually feel some compassion. I won't say feel sorry for them. That's not the best way, but I can
Mhm.
feel I can feel compassion for the the fact that they are defining their universe as
Right.
the only way to experience Blackness.
Right. That
And
unequal, it's that unequal access, right?
unequal, yeah. Or and sometimes perhaps it's not access or opportunity. Sometimes it is preference. So I went to Alvin Ailey. I didn't like it. Okay. It doesn't mean that a person who enjoys the Alvin Ailey dance company thinks they're anything other than black if they're black, you know.
Right.
Alvin Ailey appeals to people of all races, even though it's an Afrocentric dance company, because the artistry is absolutely phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal, but it's not everybody's cup of tea, and that's
Correct.
okay. That's okay.
Correct.
Um, if I choose to if I choose to dress in a way that would be deemed more conservatively, um, that might just be my style preference. It doesn't mean I'm trying to be
Right.
someone or something that I'm not. And I love the way you spoke of that firm racial identity, just knowing who you are. We
Mhm.
have to wrap up, but Mary, this is so good. We could go on and on and on, but let me ask you this as a final question. If you
Sure.
were speaking directly to Black teenagers today, what would you want them to understand about race, culture, and identity that might free them from the power of this negative accusation? How can they reclaim their cultural freedom to be Black and enjoy whatever they want to enjoy?
Just to do that.
Okay.
There is no rule book. There's no right, there's no wrong, there's no difference. If you enjoy the ballet, if you enjoy playing soccer, if you enjoy playing pickleball, if you happen to be the star of your class because you got the highest grades and now you're the valedictorian or the guest speaker or the honor roll, do it. Life is too short and you're an amazing person no matter whatever you choose to do.
Yeah.
You can do it to the best of your ability. and you don't have to follow anybody's rules.
Yeah, yeah. Let me share a personal story. I got that accusation from some people when I was growing up. Um, and I tried not to let it bother me. I just kept going. I did what I did.
Mhm.
And years later, I'm talking 40 years, easily 40 years after graduation, one of my African American classmates
Okay.
said to me, "LaVerne, I never said this to you when we were in school." He said, "But I looked up to you. We all looked up to you because you were representing us being near the top of the class. You were sitting right there in the front row of on graduation day because you were in the top 5 or 10 of the class, and we were proud of you. We knew we knew Black people could be smart because you were smart. We knew Black people could achieve because you were achieving." And we said, "Hey, that LaVerne Haynes, she's wow." But he said, "I never said that to you then."
Mm.
And he said, "Here we are at just about 60 years old or so. And I want to say that to you.
Mm.
I want to say that to you while I can." And I was so taken aback because I had never suspected that there
Right.
was a secret respect for what I was, for my position in the class, and different things I did. And um, it was it was it was overwhelming in that moment that someone came back and said, "You represented us well, and we thank you for that."
Mm.
I want to encourage anybody who has ever thought about making that accusation, that acting white accusation, to another person, to rethink the
Yes.
dynamic of that relationship, to
Yes.
re-examine what you could be saying to that individual, uh, that would build them up and would encourage them in whatever they're doing. I believe that's something that we could talk about the roots of that in history and going back to slavery. And if we had time, we could really go back and unearth that. But I'm going to tell you what we have to do. And a friend of mine uses this term so well. She says, "We have to lose our cotton picking mind."
Oh, yeah.
Our cotton
Absolutely.
picking mind. We have to
Right.
lose the mind of slavery,
Right.
where we allowed landowners and plantation owners and slaveholders to pit one against the other.
Absolutely.
We have to we have to find every trace of that that's still in us, and we have to pull it up, root it up, unearth it, and toss it.
And that
And
is true.
this conversation that you and I have had today, again, we could say so much more, but I thank you from the bottom
Thank
of
you
my
for having
heart.
me. Yes.
Yeah, for being a part of this. And I have a cultural insight brief that I'm going to make available. It's got some of the key concepts that we've talked about today and some reflection questions that we can ask ourselves about how we have been impacted either by receiving those accusations or by throwing out those accusations, even for therapists like ourselves. What are some of the things that we can do in order to help a person heal from that wound that they may not even be talking about when they come in to therapy? So the link will be made available. If that is a piece of literature that you're interested in, just request it and it will be sent to you free of charge. so that you can take this conversation and go even further with it. Just to review today, we've talked about some powerful things: the identity policing within communities, the historical narratives about race and achievement, the internalized racism, the cultural gatekeeping, the psychological impact of having one's sense of belonging threatened, and
Right.
recognizing the diversity of cultural expression within racial groups. This cultural brief is so important because you could take you could take a lot of time on any one of those cultural themes that we've addressed today. And that's what I hope you'll do. And I hope that this cultural brief, I hope that you will request it, receive it, and use it as a conversation piece, perhaps in your small groups, in your therapy, wherever, in your Bible study, wherever, right? Women's groups, men's groups. Use it as a conversation starter, because those are the kinds of things that silently shape and influence how we see ourselves. Statements that young people make to one another are not simply teasing. It's not simply pure conflict. They can reflect deeper historical wounds. They can reflect internalized cultural narratives. And when we help young people as well as adults understand that there has never been only one way to be anything, Black, white, whatever, the accusations that attempt to narrow our identity begin to lose their power. I'm going to close with this one thought: race is not a script, culture is not a costume. And when we expand our understanding of culture, we expand our freedom to belong. Thank you again, Mary. That's it for this episode of the Multicultural Mindset. I will see you next time. Remember to like, subscribe, and click that notifications button so that you can be the first to know when a new podcast is broadcast. Thanks so much.
Thank
Remember,
you.
we're practicing with humility, a multicultural mindset, and a cultural respect for all people. So long for now. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.